Webinar san udda?
Start.
Okay. Welcome to Telangana Model School webinars. Today we have zoology and physics webinars for senior inter students. Children, in previous zoology session, we learned about cardiac cycle and types of circulation, and also regulation of cardiac activities such as neuronal and hormonal regulation. Today, let us learn more about functioning aspects of heart, that is about the blood vessels, and also about few disorders. Thank you, children. Today we have Prasanna ma'am with us. Good morning, Prasanna ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, ma. You can continue the session. Ma'am is like Prasanna Kumari madam is from, she is working at Prasanna Kumari ma'am is working at Munagala, Suryapet district. Welcome, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, students. Welcome back to zoology session again. A warm welcome to all the students. I hope you are all doing well. So let's start with the session. Before going to the topic, you please observe these images and what's happening over there. So what are these images are indicating? Yes, of course, they help in transportation. Means these vehicles help in moving people from one place to another place and picking them up, and they are transporting goods from one place to another place. Means they are reaching each and every person and item to their respective destinations. So all these together called means of transport. Is there any such kind of means of transport inside our body? Yes, of course. We have special transport system. Already we discussed certain things which are related to the transport system, like the very important organ of transport system, that is heart. Heart is the central organ of transport system or circulatory system in our body, which help in pumping blood to all parts and all tissues of the cells and getting it back. So what is the reason why this heart is pumping the substance? Because this is the only responsible organ which is helping in transporting of all nutrients and oxygen and essential substances to each and every cell, and receiving the unwanted substances which are formed due to metabolic activities in each and every cell, and those are collected by the transporting system or circulatory system. So this circulatory system is not only having heart, it is having another components like blood vessels and blood. Already in the previous sessions, we have discussed the different chambers that are present in the heart, that is structure we discussed, and the main function of the heart. Today, we are going to discuss these tubular structures or extensions formed in the body that help in transportation or circulating the blood which is pumped out of the heart. So those tubular extensive network structures extending each and every cell of the part or each and every cell in the human body are together constitute blood vessels. So today's our talking points are its structure, branches and functions, veins, structure, branches and functions, capillaries, structure and functions, tiers of artery, vein and capillary, vasa vasorum, differences between arteries and veins, blood pressure, blood pressures also we discussed under disorders of circulatory system. Under disorders, we are going to discuss hypertension, coronary artery disease, angina pectoris, and heart failure. Let's move on. So blood vessels. What are blood vessels? Blood vessels are the network of tubules throughout the body which permit blood to flow from heart to all living cells of the body, then back to the heart. So here in this, you're clearly observing the network of tubules that are coming out of the body. So the major bulk of the heart is formed by the aortas. Already we discussed different aortic arches and different blood vessels that are communicating with the heart. These large trunks are giving rise narrow tubules through which blood passes to each and every cell. So blood vessels are nothing but network of tubules throughout the body which permit blood to flow from the heart to all the living cells of the body and then back to the heart. So there are different branches or different types of blood vessels in the human body. We have 5 different types of blood vessels. How many types? 5 different types of blood vessels. They are as follows: arteries, arterioles, venules, veins, and their respective capillaries. So total 5 different types of blood vessels are seen in human body. They are arteries, arterioles, their capillaries, venules, veins, and there these images you can observe how the arteries are extending and their branches in the body throughout the body and in the body, and their respective minute and microscopic branches which are communicating directly with each and every cell of the tissues. So 5 different types of blood vessels we have in our body. They are arterioles, arteries, capillaries, venules, and veins. Arteries, arterioles, and capillaries. Let's see in detail. What are arteries? Arteries are the blood vessels blood away from the heart. You please remember this, children. Irrespective of the oxygenation of the blood, arteries are nothing but the blood vessels which transport blood away from the heart. And these arterioles are having large diameter when compared to their respective branches. Means arteries are branching to form with low diameter or less diameter comparatively with the arteries. Those less diameter branches of arteries are called arterioles. The arterioles transport blood to capillaries. Means from arteries to the capillaries, the mediating vessels are the arterioles. Okay, arteries are the blood vessels which have wide diameter, which are branching to form the arterioles with low diameter. These arterioles further branches or further ramifying to form the microscopic blood vessels called capillaries. So these capillaries are very minute and extending deep into the narrow spaces of the cells or into the intercellular spaces. The capillaries mainly help in gas exchange and solutes, that is the nutrients and other waste products are also exchanged between the tissues and the capillaries. Okay, arteries are the large branches of branches of blood vessels which have wide diameter, which ramify to form arterioles with low diameter. Arterioles again ramify to form the microscopic branches called capillaries. Next, veins. The capillaries which are arising from the arterioles, means arteries are ending with a, here you can see arteries ends with capillaries. These capillaries further they unite to form the other structures or other branches called venules, which together unite to form veins. Means between veins and arteries, venules and arterioles, there are the mediating branches or microscopic structures called capillaries. Venules are the blood vessels that drain blood from capillaries into the larger veins. Larger veins are nothing but branches or the union. The venules are united to form branched structures called veins. So venules are draining blood from capillaries into the veins. These veins return blood to the heart through the system of vena cava. System of vena cava means precaval veins we have and one postcaval vein. Into the system of vena cava, all the veins are opening, and even pulmonary veins are also there. They are opening into the left atrium. I'll repeat again. Arteries are the blood vessels with high diameter or with large diameter which transport blood away from the heart. They ramify to form arterioles with low diameter which transport blood to capillaries. Arterioles divide to form capillaries with very minute lumen, and they are the microscopic vessels. These capillaries further unite to form venules, and venules unite to form veins which finally open into the heart. Next is vasa vasorum. Vasa vasorum is nothing but these are the vessels of the vessels or vessels within the vessels. Means as the blood vessels are working continuously to pump blood, they also undergo contraction and relaxations for pumping the blood throughout the body. So for their continuous action, they need continuous supply of energy. That continuous supply of energy is again supplied through the blood. So blood vessels are in turn supplied by the blood capillaries. They are nothing but the vasovasorum. We'll discuss in the next slides. We'll move on. First, arteries. So arteries, just now I told you, these are the blood vessels that deliver oxygen-rich blood from heart to the tissues of the body. So arteries are the blood vessels that deliver oxygen-rich blood and also the nutrient-rich blood to the tissues of the body. Each artery is a muscular tube lined by smooth muscle and the tissues. The largest aorta, the largest artery is called aorta, which is coming out of the heart. Already we discussed in the internal structure of heart. There are two aortic arches, pulmonary aorta and systemic aorta. Systemic aorta is the largest artery. And this is the main high pressure pipeline connected to the heart's ventricle. So here this is the schematic representation of branching of arteries. Aorta branches to form arteries, arteries branches to form arterioles, and arterioles again further branch to form capillaries. Wall of artery, number of layers that are forming the artery wall are 3: tunica externa, tunica media, and tunica interna. Tunica is nothing but the layer. Okay, all these are the Latin terms. Tunica externa means external layer or outer layer. Tunica media means media. Tunica means the inside, innermost layer that is forming the wall of artery. Tunica externa, what are the composition, structural components of the different layers of the wall of artery? Let's see. Tunica externa is formed by elastic and collagen fibers. So these are nothing but a type of connective tissue. Remember this entire thing is important for your need purpose. Tunica externa is formed by elastic and collagen fibers, which is nothing but a connective tissue. The tunica media, the middle layer, is formed by circular smooth muscles and external elastic lamina. What are the layers present in tunica media? Circular smooth muscles and external elastic lamina. Tunica interna is formed by internal elastic lamina and basement membrane and endothelium, which is the innermost layer. Whenever we come across with the term endothelium, endothelium is nothing but it is a type of simple squamous epithelium. The simple squamous epithelium is nothing but the epithelium with single row of cells. So always the simple squamous epithelium helps in transportation or diffusion of the substances. clear? So let's see how these layers are arranged in the next slide. So this is the longitudinal section of the artery, which is clearly showing the arrangement of different layers. As I told you, the artery wall has 3 layers: tunica externa, this is the outermost layer, tunica externa; tunica media, the middle layer which is formed by smooth muscles; and tunica interna. So if you observe the structure of this artery, inside the artery there is a lumen. We'll come from inside to outside. The artery has a lumen or empty space. So that lumen is filled with the blood. The empty space or the innermost lining of the artery is formed by single layered cell or tissue called squamous epithelium, that is nothing but the endothelium. So whenever you observe the endothelial cells, they rest on a basement membrane. Always the epithelial cells rest on basement membrane. So the endothelium which is resting on basement membrane. So I told you what are the different layers of tunica interna: internal elastic lamina, basement membrane, and endothelium. Here in this image you can clearly observe this is the endothelium, which is nothing but the simple squamous epithelium. The cells are resting on basement membrane. Outside the basement membrane of this tunica interna, there is an elastic lamina that is called internal elastic lamina. So please note down the position of internal elastic lamina. Internal elastic lamina is forming the outer margin or outer surface of the basement membrane of tunica interna. Okay, internal elastic lamina is forming the outer margin or outer layer of the basement membrane of tunica interna. Next layer is the tunica media. Tunica media is formed by rings of smooth muscles, especially the circular muscles. They are not the longitudinal muscles, okay? Tunica media is formed by rings of smooth muscles called circular muscles. And we can position the internal elastic lamina in another sense, that internal elastic lamina is forming the inner layer of tunica media. So I'll repeat again. Internal elastic lamina is forming the outer margin of the basement membrane of tunica interna, or it is forming the inner layer of the tunica media. In other sense, we can also say internal elastic lamina is present between tunica interna and tunica media. This is a simple way of expression. Okay, tunica interna and tunica media are having a middle layer or partition called internal elastic lamina. Next, outermost layer is the tunica externa. Tunica externa is formed by which layer? It is formed by elastic collagen fibers or connective tissues. So this tunica externa is having one more lining of elastic lamina, that is called external elastic lamina. So whenever you get the terms internal and external, external means outside, internal means inside. External elastic lamina is forming the inner layer of the tunica externa. In other sense, we can say external elastic lamina is formed between tunica media and tunica externa. So between tunica externa and tunica media, there is external elastic lamina, and between tunica media and tunica interna, there is internal elastic lamina. So means how many elastic laminas are forming the wall of artery layer? 2 elastic laminas are forming. Number of elastic laminas that are forming or lining the wall of arteries are 2. Remember this. Okay, I hope this is clear for you. Next, coming to veins. So in this image, you can observe these blue colored structures which are extending throughout the body. So just now I told you arteries are the blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart. Then what are veins? Veins are the blood vessels which carry blood towards the heart. Means these are the collecting vessels. Arteries are the distributing vessels, whereas veins, and these veins are less muscular when compared to arteries. Means the thickness of the wall of veins is very less due to the presence of less muscles or less number of circular muscles. And they are characterized by the presence of valves. So valves are present in the lumen of the veins. And blood pressure is also very less due to the presence of, what is the reason why blood pressure is less? Means presence of less number of smooth muscles, and blood in veins is not pumped by the heart. They are the receiving blood vessels which are receiving blood from the capillaries. So as the capillaries are having very low pressure, the same thing is happening into the veins and venules. So blood pressure in the veins is very less. Rate of flow increases from smaller to larger veins. Smaller veins are nothing but capillaries which are united to form venules, and venules are united to form veins, and which in turn they are forming vena cava. So as we are going up or we are going to the larger sized veins, blood pressure or flow of blood also increases. And these are low elastic. Veins are low elastic. Why they are low elastic? I will let you know the reason in the next slide. And there is no exchange of materials takes place in the veins. So here you can see the veins are having valves. Just now I told you. So what are the type of valves present in the veins? The valves present in the veins are semilunar valves. Remember this? Semilunar valves are present in the veins and venules. Why these valves are absent in the arteries and why they are present in the veins? Because in arteries, blood is flowing from heart to each and every cell. Means that is towards the gravitational force. So there is no chance of backward flow from the tissues. But here in the case of veins, the blood is flowing against the gravitational force. So the blood has to move from toe to the chest cavity. So as the blood is moving against the gravitational force, there is a chance of backward flow of blood again back to the tissues. That's why to prevent backward flow in the veins, they are having valves, semilunar valves, which allow only unidirectional movement of flow. As there is no heart for pumping blood into the veins, how the blood is pumped to the capillaries and veins from the tissues? Yes, the skeletal muscles which we have in the body, by the contraction and relaxation of the skeletal muscles, the veins are squeezed. As they are squeezing, blood is moved with high pressure in the veins. So this is the reason. As we are moving, we are doing locomotion and movement, the skeletal muscles undergo contractions and relaxations which allow or which exert pressure on the veins for the flow of blood. And due to the gravitational force, the blood flow may return back to the tissues. That's why to prevent this, the valves are preventing backward flow. That's why veins are fixed. Next, we'll see. Just now I told you valves are less elastic. Why these veins are less elastic? Because veins are also having three layers in the wall. The wall of veins also formed by three layers. They are tunica externa, tunica media, and tunica interna. This is the tunica externa, tunica media, and tunica interna. Here you can observe there is only one elastic lamina. Where is this present? Between tunica media and tunica interna, only one elastic lamina is present. There is no external elastic lamina. That's why due to the presence of single elastic lamina layer, the veins are less elastic when compared to arteries. Clear, children? So remember, number of elastic laminas are two in the wall of arteries and one in the wall of veins. That is the reason arteries are more elastic than the veins. Remaining all are same. The three layers are present like that of arteries, tunica externa, tunica media and tunica interna, and the structural components are also similar when compared to the arteries. So this diagram is clearly showing you the connecting vessels between arteries and veins are the branched microscopic vessels, nothing but the capillaries. It's always arteries branch to form arterioles with less diameter, and arterioles further ramify or branch to form microscopic capillaries. Means arteries always ends with capillaries. And these capillaries further branched and forming capillaries and which unite to form venules. Venules further unite to form large veins. Means veins always begin with capillaries, whereas all arteries always ends with capillaries. So what are capillaries? What is the difference between capillary and the arteries? These are the branches of arteries and the veins. Means arteries are branched further and further to form the microscopic branches which are extending and communicating with each and every cell. One more difference between capillaries of artery and capillaries of veins is the artery capillaries help in exchange of substances, but there is no exchange, means only the receiving takes place. Receiving is taking place by the capillaries of the veins, but whereas arteries are exchanging the substances. Capillaries are the less diameter or least diameter vessels with only one cell thick. The wall of capillaries is formed by only one layer. Arteries and veins are forming three layers, whereas in the wall of capillary only one layer is formed, that is nothing but the endothelium. This endothelium is lining the capillaries and inside the chambers, and also this is forming lining the valves of the heart. Okay, so capillaries are least diameter vessels with only one cell thick, and they have a very dense network. They are forming very dense network in the tissues. Capillaries are forming very dense network, and these capillaries are reaching all cells of the body. How the diameter of these capillaries is controlled? The diameter of the capillary can be controlled by change in the shape of the cells, nervous stimulation causing constriction, chemicals like histamine cause dilation. So capillaries constriction and dilation is depending on neural as well as chemical control. And before starting of the capillaries, they have certain sphincters called precapillary sphincters. Precapillary sphincters are nothing but the muscle layer which is present in the arteriole wall. Arteriole wall muscle layers are forming precapillary sphincters to reduce the pressure while the blood is flowing from arterioles into the capillaries, because as the capillaries are having very thin lining, if the blood pressure is high as like that of the arteries and arterioles, there is a chance of damage of the capillary wall, because as they are formed by one cell thick squamous epithelium. To reduce the pressure flow of blood from arterioles into the capillaries, there are certain check posts which are present between arterioles and the capillaries, nothing but precapillary sphincters formed by the muscles of arteriole wall. So capillaries are highly permeable, which help in exchange of water and dissolved substances. They can pass easily through the wall of the capillaries. Exchange of digested food, oxygen and carbon dioxide also takes place between capillaries and the tissues. And these are the site of exchange of materials. No valves are seen in the capillaries. Remember this, students, no valves are present. And blood pressure is also very low. Slow rate of flow and to allow exchange of the materials. Why the blood flow is very slow? If the blood pressure is high, the exchange of materials will not take properly between the tissues and the cells. So as the blood is moving slowly, as the blood flow or pressure decreases due to low pressure of the capillary, the exchange of substances will be easily facilitated between tissues and the capillaries. And pulse rate cannot be detected. You know pulse rate, and you are familiar with the pulse rate in your 10th class itself, heart rate and pulse rate. So pulse rate cannot be detected with the capillaries. Let's see the TS of arteries, veins and capillaries. Just now I told you the wall of artery is thick when compared to the veins, because the only difference is artery wall is formed by more number of circular rings called circular muscles, but the muscular wall of vein is formed by with less number of muscles. So the lumen or diameter of the artery is less when compared to the lumen of the vein. Means veins are having wide lumen when compared to arteries, and capillaries are having very relatively less lumen when compared to the veins. So the reason behind the thickness of the walls is number of muscles present in the tunica media. Vasa vasorum. What is vasa vasorum? I told you the blood vessels which are transporting blood to each and every cell, they require continuous supply of energy for the contraction and relaxation of the circular muscle layer. Tunica media is formed by circular muscle layers which undergo contractions and relaxations. So those contractions and relaxations require more supply of energy for proper functioning of blood vessels. They are further supplied with more blood vessels called vasa vasorum. Vasa vasorum is a network of small blood vessels that supply the walls of large blood vessels such as elastic arteries and the veins. Here in this image you can observe this is a wall of artery which is supplied with a network of small blood vessels. So these network of small blood vessels, again there are also two types, arteries and veins. So which arteries are supplying nutrient and oxygen rich blood to the wall of artery, and the veins are collecting carbon dioxide rich and waste products from the wall of the artery. So the wall of artery which is supplied with small network of tubes called vasa vasorum. Remember this. Let's see the differences between arteries and veins. Students, this is very important for you for 4 marks question. Please, you have to read this like anything. What are the differences between arteries and veins? Just now we discussed entire structure of arteries and their branches, veins and their branches. Let's see the difference. Arteries are the blood vessels which carry oxygenated blood away from the heart, whereas veins carry deoxygenated blood towards the heart. Arteries are bright red in color, veins are dark red in color. And arteries are mostly deeply seated and veins are generally superficial. So let me ask you a question. Whenever you go to a hospital or any labs, pathological labs, if the doctor advise you to get for any blood test, the lab assistant will take out blood from your body. Tell me from which blood vessels the lab assistant is collecting blood from your body. Yes, veins. So if you observe your hands or just below the skin, you can find some greenish colored branches. They are nothing but the veins. Generally, veins are subcutaneous or they are superficial, whereas arteries are deeply seated. They are present inside the muscles. If the lab assistant collect blood from the veins, if any puncture occurs to the artery, that results in highly fountain of blood, means the blood is flowing with high pressure in the arteries. That's why the blood will not be collected from the arteries. So as the blood pressure is very low in the veins and they are superficial, that it is very easy to collect blood from the veins. The arteries are thick walled, as the tunica media is relatively thick and veins are thin walled. Lumen is narrow in arteries, lumen is wide. This is also reason because of the presence of difference in the number of muscles in the tunica media. Arteries are non-valvular, means valves are absent, whereas veins are having valves, that's why they are valvular. Blood in arteries flows with more pressure and by jerks. Blood in veins flows steadily with relatively low pressure. And finally, arteries end with capillaries, whereas veins start with capillaries. This is very important for your 4 marks question. Okay, students. Now let's go for disorders of the circulatory system. What is mean by disorder? Disease and disorder. Two terms will come across in the medical terms. What is disease and what is disorder? So while you are doing your assembly, while you are attending your assembly, your principals ask you to be in attention. And after some time, they'll ask you to be in stand at ease. Stand at ease means ease is nothing but comfort. Means your principal is asking you to be stand in comfort position. Dis-ease means disturbance in the comfort. That is because of certain disease causing germs. Diseases may be due to disease causing agents that cause damage to the functioning of entire system. And general body functioning is also deprived or deviated because of certain infections. That is dis-ease, discomfort in the easiness of the body. Disorder means disturbance in the orderly functions of certain systems. So this is intrinsic or which is internally taking place within the system without any infections or without any pathological disorders. Disorder means disturbance in the orderly functions of the system. So today we'll discuss what are the disturbances in the orderly functions of the systems and what are the causes. Let's move on. Before going in detail the disorders, first let's see what is blood pressure and flow. What is blood pressure? Blood pressure is nothing but the pressure of blood which is exerting on the wall of arteries. Okay, the pressure which is exerting on the wall of blood vessels, rather to say arteries, the pressure of blood which is exerting on the wall of blood vessels is called blood pressure. As the heart is pumping blood continuously, due to the contractions and relaxations of the muscular wall and the elasticity of the elastic lamina present lining the tunica interna of the blood vessels, blood flows in jerks. So that is exerting certain pressure on the wall of blood vessels, that is called blood pressure. Generally, this blood pressure is generated by ventricles. Most of the people, they believe that normal blood pressure is 120 by 80 means 120 is systolic pressure and 80 is the diastolic pressure, means 120 is caused by ventricles and 80 is caused by auricles. That is not the thing. Both 120 by 80 pressure is generated by ventricles only. And the blood pressure is highest in aorta. Gradually it is decreasing as it is going towards the capillaries. Mostly blood pressure can be detected with the pressure that is exerted by the blood on the walls of arteries. So highest blood pressure is during systole. Systole is nothing but contraction of the ventricles. During ventricular contraction, the normal blood pressure is, when the person is at rest, is 120 millimeters of mercury. And diastolic pressure is normally, it is ranging between 75 to 85. So generally we used to say normal blood pressure is 120 by 80. So first disorder which is related to the heart or circulatory system is hypertension. Hypertension is nothing but high blood pressure. So this is a chronic medical condition. Chronic means prolonged. Hypertension is a chronic medical condition in which blood pressure in arteries is elevated. Elevated means increased. The arterial blood pressure, if it increases above the normal level, and that is called hypertension, or in usual term we call it as high blood pressure. High blood pressure leads to what? It leads to heart diseases and also affects other vital organs such as brain and kidneys. So why? Because all these organs, arteries are ending with the capillaries. If the blood pressure is high in the aorta, that is resulting in the pressure, increased pressure in the arteries and further increased pressure in the capillaries. As the capillaries are subjected to high blood pressure, there is a damage of the wall of the capillaries. Hence, most of the sensitive organs and important organs are also damaged due to hypertension. So when we call the blood pressure is high, when the blood pressure is above 140 by 90 mmHg, then it is considered hypertension. And it is measured in the brachial artery of the arm by using a special machine called sphygmomanometer. This is a sphygmomanometer. I hope you all are familiar with this BP machine. We used to call it as BP measuring machine. Nothing but sphygmomanometer. It was discovered in the year 1881. The clinically applicable sphygmomanometer was invented in 1881 by Austrian physician Carl Samuel Ritter von Basch. Next disorder is coronary artery disease. This coronary artery disease is also called ischemic heart disease. So generally ischemic heart disease is involving the left side of the ventricle. Okay, left ventricle. It is subjected to left ventricle. So what is coronary artery disease or ischemic heart disease? It is nothing but it is a group of clinical pathological syndrome. Group of clinical pathological syndromes. Syndrome means one single disorder is subjected to expose many symptoms. If single disorder is expressing many symptoms, then that is called syndrome. So coronary artery disease or CAD, it is also called ischemic heart disease, which is a clinically pathological syndrome. And this is one of the causes of death in men and women in United States and other Western countries, and also mostly in the industrial areas. So this is the most common or one of the main reason for death of the men and women. So what is the reason for this coronary artery disease? So why it is resulting? It results due to imbalance between oxygen supply and demand to the myocardium. This is a myocardium. Myocardium nothing but the muscles which are supplied to the wall of heart are called myocardium. As the muscles are undergoing contractions and relaxations rhythmically to pump out the blood, they need continuous supply of oxygen and other nutrients. But in this case of coronary artery disease, if there is imbalance, so where it is imbalancing, if the imbalance occurs between oxygen and nutrient supply and demand to the myocardium, if this myocardium is wanting more oxygen and more nutrients for its proper functioning, but heart is unable to pump or unable to supply oxygen and nutrients to the wall of the muscle, that results in coronary artery disease. So what are the three components? There are three components which are resulting in reduced blood flow. So blood flow to the muscles of the heart are reduced, and there are three reasons for the reduction of the blood flow. One is reduced oxygen supply, second is reduced nutrients required by the myocardium, and third one is reduced or impaired washout of the metabolic waste. As the blood supply is low, you obviously you can understand that there is no taking of waste materials from the wall of heart which are formed due to metabolic activity. So three components are taking place during coronary artery disease. One is reduced oxygen supply to the muscle or myocardium, reduced nutrient supply which is demanded by the myocardium, and third one, reduced washout of metabolic waste which are accumulated in the wall of the myocardium. This ischemia, so narrow blood vessel reduce the blood flow to the heart causing ischemia. Ischemia is very dangerous when compared to isolated hypoxia. Hypoxia means low supply of oxygen. Only oxygen supply is deprived to the muscular wall when compared to nutrients and the other things. But here in this case of coronary artery disease, besides oxygen, nutrients are also less supplied to the wall of muscle, and washout of metabolic waste is also not properly occurring. And the reasons for low supply of oxygen and why this heart is supplied with low oxygen and low nutrients means severe anemia. The first cause, first reason for coronary artery disease is severe anemia. What is anemia? Anemia means less amount of hemoglobin present in the blood. So that low amount of hemoglobin causes depletion in the oxygen carrying capacity. The oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is decreased due to severe anemia, and also severe pulmonary diseases also leads to low supply of oxygen to the wall of heart. And shunting of blood within the heart. Sometimes shunting of blood takes place. Shunting of blood means that oxygenated blood mixes with deoxygenated and deoxygenated blood mixes with oxygenated. Whenever the blood gets mixed, there is low supply of oxygen to the wall of heart. And finally, it results in reduced blood flow to the ventricles. And common causes for coronary artery disease is called atherosclerosis. So in this first point, you can find the term atherosclerotic heart disease. CAD is also referred to as atherosclerotic heart disease. What is meant by atheroma? Have you ever heard this term, students? No. Atheroma means fibrofatty block formed in the intima. What is intima? The layer of the arteries. The layer or wall of the arteries is called intima layer. If this within the wall of the intima layer, if fibrous fatty block occurs, this block is not present in the lumen of the artery. Please remember this, in this coronary artery disease, block is not formed in the lumen of the artery, but it is formed within the wall of artery, so that the wall of size of the muscle layer increases, which is narrowing the blood vessel. So this narrowing of blood vessel results in low supply of blood and further results in low supply of oxygen and nutrients to the wall or myocardium of the heart, which is demanding more. Is this clear? So why this atheroma is occurring, why this fibrous elastic or fatty block is forming? It is due to accumulation of calcium, fat, cholesterol and fibrous tissue along the wall of the coronary artery. Please note down, fatty fibroblock is formed due to the accumulation of calcium, fat, cholesterol and fibrous tissue. Finally, myocardial cells may die due to lack of oxygen. So that death of the myocardial cells is called myocardial infarction. And finally, it leads to muscle damage, heart muscle damage. Let's move on to the next disorder of the heart. Before going to the next disorder, let's see CAD is associated with. What are the other causes resulting in CAD? They are smoking, diabetes and hypertension. Coronary artery disease is associated with smoking, diabetes and hypertension. Next disorder is angina pectoris. Angina pectoris is a term which is derived from Latin word. It is a Latin origin word. Angier. Angier means to strangle. To strangle. What is the meaning of strangle again? Strangle nothing but squeezing with high force. Pectoris is nothing but the chest. Means in common, angina pectoris is called squeezing of the chest or pain in the chest. In simple, it is called chest pain. Okay. So angina is a condition marked by severe pain in the chest. It is marked by severe pain in the chest, often also spreading to the shoulders, arms, and neck, owing to an inadequate supply to the heart. So whenever inadequate supply to the heart occurs when blood vessels are becoming narrowing, which is nothing but an ischemia. And this angina pectoris is a warning signal of deprivation of blood supply to the heart muscles. Before heart attack occurs, this angina pectoris occurs, which is a warning signal. Angina pectoris is commonly called what? Chest pain. The pain is typically severe and crushing. It is characterized by a feeling of pressure and suffocation just being beside the breastbone. Breastbone means just behind the sternum bone. The person is feeling like pressure and suffocation. Angina can accompany or be a precursor of heart attack. This is the precursor of heart attack. And what are the different causes for angina pectoris? The most common cause is a localage or local blockage somewhere in the coronary artery. The local blockage which is occurs somewhere in the coronary artery, the arteries that supply blood to the heart. Coronary arteries are nothing but the arteries that supply blood to the heart. So that blockage will resulting in narrowing of the blood vessel, and finally blood flow is reduced. Flow of blood is reduced to the wall of heart, resulting in pain or squeezing of the muscles. This angina may be especially prevalent during physical exertions. If a person is doing enormous exercises, heart has to pump enormous blood to need its demand of supplying oxygen to the tissues as they are undergoing strenuous exercise. But the cardiac output is becoming very less during each supply as the person is doing. Ventricles become emptying, so there is no blood to pump to the tissues, and in turn there is no blood which is pumped sufficiently to the wall of the heart muscles or myocardial layer. That results in pain or inadequate supply to the wall, and finally results in blockage. It may also occur if the coronary arteries are inflamed. Inflamed means swelling, redness, pain. All these comes under inflammation. And infected. If coronary arteries are infected, that results in angina pectoris. And if coronary arteries are injured, that also results in angina pectoris. So angina pectoris is simply the chest pain which is derived from the Latin word anginere, means to strangle, pectoris means chest. So it is more common among the middle-aged and elderly people. Major risk factors for angina pectoris are: number one, smoking, diabetes, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure, that is hypertension. These are the major risk factors of angina pectoris. Let's move on to the next disorder, heart failure. It is also called myocardial infarction or heart attack. What is meant by heart failure? In simple, we can say heart failure is nothing but failure of the heart to do its normal function. What is the normal function of the heart? Cardiac output. Cardiac output is nothing but the volume of blood that is pumped out of heart per each ventricle per minute. So total in 1 minute, heart is pumping nearly about 5 liters of blood to each and every cell. So this cardiac output is a normal functioning of the heart. If normal functioning of heart gets failed, that results in heart failure, or that is called heart failure. So heart failure means heart is unable to maintain enough cardiac output to meet the minimum metabolic needs of the peripheral tissues. The heart is unable to maintain enough cardiac output to meet the minimum metabolic needs of the peripheral tissues. In spite the cardiac, it is above the normal or above the level of the cardiac normal output. This heart failure is a clinical pathological syndrome comprising by failure of the heart to generate enough cardiac output to meet the minimum metabolic needs of the tissue. For normal cardiac output, heart rate must be good and stroke volume should also be good, and also the myocardial health. Myocardial health is nothing but health of the muscles of cardiac wall. Heart wall is supplied with the muscles called myocardium. So common causes of this heart failure include myocardial infarction or heart attack, that is localized death of heart tissue, and other forms of heart diseases and hypertension. This heart failure is also called congestive heart failure. Congestive heart failure means when systolic pressure and diastolic pressure decreases or cardiac output decreases, that result in decreased supply of oxygen to the different tissues as well as to the lungs. Even lungs also require oxygen for their proper function. If lungs are supplied with low oxygen, then that is called congestion of lungs. Congestion of lungs is a main symptom of heart failure. And this is not the same as cardiac arrest or cardiac attack. This is only the failure of pumping of heart. Cardiac output is not completely up to the mark to reach the minimum needs of the metabolic rate of the peripheral tissues. Next disorder. Okay, fine children. I will have the recap. Today we discussed blood vessels, types of blood vessels, artery branches and their functions, and capillary structure and functions, tiers of artery, veins and capillary, vasa vasorum, differences between arteries and veins, blood pressure definition, and disorders of the circulatory system. Okay, fine. So you must be very thorough with the following questions. You did not get these questions in the previous sessions, so please make a note of this, and these are important for your exam for IPE. 2 marks questions, 4 marks and 8 marks. Okay, I hope this session is very useful for you, and thank you.
Madam, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was a wonderful session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hope students have understood